Hey everybody, it's Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner, or Dr. Blackard.
You can call me whatever you want, wink.
Just don't
Or
call
don't.
me a taxi.
Just don't call me. That's it. That's the end of the sentence. Don't call me.
Please don't call me. Who calls people with phones these days?
No one contact me under any circumstances.
It has been quite a while since we recorded, especially given how most people right now have a lot more free time than they usually do. Because this is the first episode that we've recorded since the world ground to a shearing halt.
Are you talking about it's September 2019? Everything's fine.
Yeah, because this is the farthest behind we've ever been on the podcast in the 6 years that we've been making it.
I did not know that. Okay.
We are going to, push the schedule up a bit and just, power through some AIOC episodes and, the last season that we haven't done yet since the next season is about to start airing.
And we all know what that means. 1-word reviews per episode, baby.
Yeah. So we're gonna, after years of everyone telling me to do it, I finally broken down. I'm abandoning the schedule, and we're just gonna.
It's me telling him to do it,
and other people.
But mostly me.
Mostly you. We're gonna just get through, abandon reviewing old episodes.
We did it, everyone. We finally broke it.
Yeah, it only took 20% of my life, more than that.
How's that feel?
I'm strong of heart. So yeah, the world has changed a lot since the last episode. The pandemic had already started last time, but I don't think schools had even closed down yet. And I failed
forever
to make even a single post on the page in the last several months and letting anyone know, hey, here's why we haven't been making more episodes, even though most content creators right now are making more content than usual because they're all stuck at home, because Victoria and I have both continued to be working throughout this whole time.
On top of us both being essential workers, I've also had exams.
Yes. So we're back, finally. Let's talk about this spicy little number. We're talking about Young Whit, number 3.
I have one note that I took
Barrymore.
that I wanted to take so I didn't forget. Page 117. Whit has a black eye. Mm-hmm. Someone tells him that he could have doubled for Lon Chaney in Phantom of the Opera with that shiner, to which I threw my computer across the room, breaking it. Shattering it into a trillion pieces.
Okay.
And yelled, incorrect.
Okay.
Lon Chaney, his whole face in Phantom of the Opera is Scully and stuff. That's the closest version to the book.
Scully from Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Yes, he's Scully from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
This fate condemns me to wallow in blood.
But also denies me the joys of the food.
Yeah, I had to Google what version of Phantom already existed in 1935 because I was clearly
that was the original movie.
Yeah, well, I didn't know that they made a non-musical movie before the musical, and I'm the musical definitely is not this old.
Do you have any idea how many adaptations there are of Phantom? There are so many movies. There are a ton of movies, and that was before the musical.
Yeah,
the musical only made there be more movies.
So I was confused, and then I looked it up, and then I wasn't confused.
It's Universal, Universal's Monster Universe.
Yeah, the DCU.
One of the movies that was in that was Phantom of the Opera.
Sorry, the DUCU.
Yeah. So the original one with the original Mummy movies and stuff, and those were all made during the 30s and 40s and stuff. They're all very old, but that's the Mummy movies. I think there's about 6 Mummy movies or something like that. Phantom of the Opera, The Invisible Man.
I mean, I knew they
Hunchback
talked
of
about
Notre
the Mummy,
Dame.
but I thought they were talking about the Brendan Fraser Mummy.
That's a remake.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then there's also a bunch of Dracula movies.
Yeah, okay, I get
there's
it. Victoria.
crossovers for like there's the Frankenstein movies. There's like Frankenstein fights Dracula and the Mummy goes to Dracula's beach party or whatever. Like there's like a lot. And Christopher Lee is Dracula.
Yes, I know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as y'all can see, okay, so Young Wit book number 3, Thieves of Barrymore, written by Dave Arnold and Phil Lawler.
Hey, how'd them Thieves of Barrymore do in plentiful screen time?
Yeah, I know, right? Like, okay, so this book, curiously, out of the previous ones, this is the first one that is not available digitally anywhere. So we had to like buy the hard copy in order to read it. And
Devin mentally, with telepathy, sent me each page in his mind as he read it.
Yeah, it was difficult to help both of us be able to read it, but we made it work. So one nice thing about the book is that in the inside and outside covers, and I'll put a full picture up on the page, is this very detailed map of Provenance. You know, it wasn't until we started the Young Wit series that I realized that the town was called Provenance and not Providence. And I always thought it was Providence, and I was like, oh, you know, it's like a God-related word because it's wit. And then I was like, oh, it's much more on the nose than that. It's provenance, as in like the history of the origin of like a place that something has been and where it's like been and come from. Because this is the town where Whit is from.
It's almost like it was prophesized more.
Or Providence.
Keywords. That works too.
So, what happens in the third book, Victoria?
So, not much thieving. It's mostly just Whit putting on a school play, honestly. So, Whit, if anyone remembers, probably not, he lost track of the Jesus cloth, which we get it confirmed at the end of this book. That's kind of the cliffhanger it leaves us on. The cloth is actually from Jesus's cloak.
What?
Coat, apparently.
That's crazy.
We'll get back to that.
It's not like they told us last book and put it in Greek and no one could have possibly figured that out. I still maintain that it's specifically like his swaddling cloth from the manger, because that's what it said in the Greek, and the cloak of Jesus isn't mutually exclusive with it being more specifically his swaddling cloth, and I think that's more interesting.
Jesus was a fashionista. He had a lot of cloaks.
Yes.
Everyone's going to get a different colored one
magazine.
As this goes on. They put it on themselves. They form a crime-fighting group, and they become the Power Rangers.
He subscribed to Boy Cloak magazine.
As we all aspire to. So, Whit. I'm tired. Okay.
Jesus, Whit, Renee, they're all the same person, really.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. So Whit is trying to like track down the cloth. He basically has to do late mid book, basically go on like a video game quest to get the cloth back, where he has to talk to one person, then another, and then another, and then do like a certain amount of like chores and stuff.
Did some grinding,
fulfill objectives,
did some min-maxing,
and then bring things to other people so that he can finally get it back.
Backtrack his fetch quest chain.
I thought it was straight up going to be gone, by the way, when he went to actually like get it back. But he actually does get it back. So Fiona goes blind at the beginning of this book.
Yeah, well, the end of last book, but yeah.
Yeah. And so one big thing I mentioned to Devin was all the interesting, which we've talked about before, kind of retcons, not quite retcons. With
the unreliable narrator-ness of Whit.
Where Whit's just like, she was so chill about being blind. She spends the first half of this book crying and not leaving her room because she's so upset.
It was
Like,
very upsetting.
it was very sad. I was sad. And so also Laszlo is introduced in this book. It's the
Yes.
first book
He
with
finally
him.
shows up.
He beats Whit up, and then there's like this moment where, with the first encounter, Laszlo punches Whit, which is why I mentioned Whit having a black eye earlier. And then Whit is helped by my brain.
Wilson Knox.
Thank you. By Wilson. And then I was just like, oh, good Wilson, because I'm a fool every single time Wilson appears. This series, me reading this series is going to be called The 1,000 Times Victoria Was Fooled and the One Time She Wasn't, by Wilson not being awful.
But like, in fairness, in the whichever episode it was that Wilson came to town and he talks to Connie, and I can never remember the name, he and Whit, when they were like talking about like, oh, remember that adventure and that adventure from when we were kids, like, it's clear that even though they're not like friends per se, that Wilson gets caught up in a kind of like anti-hero foil but lovable rascal kind of way in a bunch of these schemes, and we know that they're going to become less enemies to each other by the time that we get to like the whole science fair blood luminol thing.
Yeah, I know, but even by like the time Wilson and Charlie hook up, Whit still doesn't like Wilson.
But the point is, they're not on as bad of terms as they are right now through all of their childhood, which is what lets us be fooled every single time, because we never know when things are going to start to turn for the better.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
It makes it not totally unreasonable for us to get duped by it continuously.
So since it's like Christmas time in this book, last book was Halloween, this one's Christmas.
Yeah, last book ended just before the end of November. I have a specific date written down somewhere. After the prologue, we start with Whit 2 days after Fiona's accident, which should put us at November 28th, which is...
Yeah, so last one was Halloween and Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
This one is Christmas. Whit School...
1 year per book.
Whit School is putting on a production of The Christmas Carol, and Wilson tries out, and Whit's just like, this will be good. And then Wilson does like an amazing job, and he like is about to land the part of Ebenezer Scrooge, but Whit, little gremlin that he is like, I will not allow Wilson to have any happiness in his life.
I felt he was channeling so much Jay through him. Like,
Whit did not want to be a part of like the play, and he made that very clear to Emmy. And then he was just like, oh, I'm not letting Wilson be happy. I'm not letting him have this.
He's a petty little boy.
He is. He's awful. And then he like marches up on the stage, and then he just like does an amazing job, and he like goes really method, and he like outshine method, but not in a horrible way like most people are. And then he like outshines Wilson, so Wilson becomes the understudy. And yeah, Whit's kind of trash this part. I was not happy with him. I was like, let Wilson be happy. You just ruined his entire family name like a month ago. And now you're taking his one theater joy away.
In fairness, his pride in his family name was that they were Confederate soldiers.
That's true. That's true. But like, he also shattered his entire reality, and he's like 10 years old. So
once again, something he has in common with Renee.
Oh man. So there are like these new people in town also, which I totally bet aren't those thieves that just
the new
appeared.
One person, you mean?
There's also like people who are spies, and they're like trying to track down
we only know we only
stuff.
see one new person until the end of the book.
Honestly, I was really confused about that plot point and did not follow it at all. So I'll let you explain that. You can explain it to me too while you're at it.
Okay. Basically, there's this creepy guy who Emily has like a crush on, and Whit's like, this guy is very obviously trying to rob the bank. And so
and get their gold.
The Confederate gold that they found, and so Whit and Ben come up with a security system to try and protect the bank, and he fights with Emmy because she trusts this guy, even though he's like, this is bad. And then it turns out in the end that the plan was to rob it in the middle of this school play, and that they disactivated the alarm system, but it wasn't the guy who Whit thought it was. He was actually, which author was it? It wasn't William Scott Fitzgerald. Who?
I don't.
Or F. Remember? Scott Fitzgerald. I don't remember who it was. We'll get there later. But yeah, it's he's like, I'm a famous classic American author working for the FBI to catch this like famous...
It was really weird.
This famous band of real life thieves that we are going after, and then Whit and Emmy get like kidnapped and into a high-speed car chase out of the city, and then also Whit gets accosted by
and the author was like, no one will figure out my secret identity because I named myself after my main character, and that's my alias of my very, very famous book. And Whit's like, I read that book.
It was like Herman Melville or something like that.
I'm looking.
And
you keep talking. Dashiell Hammett.
Yeah.
Dash I-E-L-L.
Yeah, Dashiell.
Hammett. I don't know who that is.
I don't remember what he
wrote. He wrote The Maltese Falcon.
Yeah. So not that famous.
I don't know what that's about.
The only way I've heard of that is because there's the episode in Album 54 which parodies the title of that, The Malted Milk Ball Fountain.
Oh. I just know the word falcon. That's it.
Anyways, and then Professor Mongol accosts Whit to get the cloth from him, and Whit basically confesses to having the cloth, but he's like, it didn't work, my dude.
Oh yeah, also at the beginning of the book, Whit tried to use the cloth on...
Fiona, and she was like...
No, like on the kid who...
That was last book.
Oh.
That was like way back.
I couldn't remember if that was last book or the beginning of this one, because I read this book in two halves basically, and there was a really long time in between that.
And then also, so yeah, Fiona knows about the cloth now and seems totally non-fazed by it, and Whit...
I'm honestly glad she knows.
Whit learned about the weird medieval fan fiction history of the cloak, and there was like this whole like intermediate...
Oh, it was like about Gawain?
Well, here's the thing. There was a person named Gawain.
But it wasn't the Gawain I know?
Yeah.
It was like a different one? Because I guess...
It's just a name, because people
can have the
more than one person can have the same name.
What kind of nonsense is that? I'm the only Victoria there is. That's the only Devon.
Okay. So, from the start of the book, we start with the prologue.
Can you imagine if reincarnation worked that way? Like, if reincarnation
every
was
person
a thing,
with the same name.
And it worked that way, and everyone with the same name is the same person.
It's true.
Then, like, that, what's his name? That new kid, Archangel Ash, whatever.
Oh, Kai Ash, A-12.
He would be original. He would be the only person with that name.
The Grusk child.
Yes. That's an awful ship name.
Yeah,
but it's still better.
It's better than X Æ A-12.
I think I forgot to tell you. Gabe looked it up. That's the name of like a rocket ship.
No, the A-12 is the Archangel, which is a predecessor to it's not a rocket ship, but it's a non-military, fighter plane.
Yeah, but it's still something that like what's his face helped make. It's like, I'm gonna name my kid after my airplane.
I know.
Like,
but that's just the last part. The X and the Ash are unrelated to that. The X is because it's like it's an unknown variable, and
so
I don't remember what the Ash is for. And then the A-12 is for the plane.
Oh, that poor kid.
I know.
There are probably people watching that don't know what we're talking about.
Blessed beings. So,
they're lucky.
We start with the prologue, which begins with just a straight up, explicitly, this is the date that this thing happened, which is convenient because it perfectly matches what we already knew. The book has already been, this series has been pretty clear about what year it's taking place in, even though they've never said it explicitly. So this, confirms that directly in writing and lets us know that first chapter, when they robbed the previous bank takes place during the previous book because it's 2 days before Halloween when they robbed the last one.
When Whit gets... Sorry, our thoughts are all over the place, and so is our description of the plot.
They also confirm the year again because as they're robbing the bank, they talk about how that this very day is the exact 6th anniversary of Black Tuesday in the beginning of the Great Depression, which would further confirm that it's October 29th, 1935.
When Whit gets that journal at the very end, is that like the beginning of Journal of John Avery Whitaker?
Because Journal of John Avery Whitaker starts on Christmas Day with him getting the journal.
Okay.
That's what I've been looking
Charlie
forward to.
Charlie wasn't in that episode, was she?
Yeah, she was.
Was she?
Yep.
I don't.
She was in it multiple times. It had Whit talking to her, like teasing her,
or was that the confirmation episode that? No, the confirmation episode was Wilson's first appearance, I think.
Confirmation.
Like that Charlie exists?
Yes. I thought you meant like Catholic confirmation. And I was like, they're not Catholic.
Surprise! More lore to these books than y'all thought.
So, yeah. What were we talking about? You
were talking about the prologue.
The Great Depression.
It shows them...
They rob the bank.
Doing thief stuff.
They kill
for about 200 pages. That's the only mention of the thieves.
Yeah.
Like, Devin and I kept on messaging each other. We're like, where are these thieves at?
It's funny because I talked about it last book, and it was even more true this book that I'm like, literally 2% of the plot of this. Like, they get to the last couple chapters and like, oh yeah, we need to slap in whatever's related to the title.
Also, like, Emmy keeps on getting, like, really beat up in this series. Like, she takes so many hits every single book.
I feel like every opening scenario with Whit in these books, every time it opens on him, I'm asking the same question, which is, who on earth is letting this baby boy have access to potassium nitrate and ethanol and stuff? This is so dangerous.
Like, you know,
so
Steven's skeleton, when he gets x-rayed in SU Future, that's what Emmy and Whit and Jack and Wilson are all gonna look like by the end of this series.
So,
like, let alone, I don't even want to think about how messed up their skeletons would be present day. I guess not Charlie. This doesn't impact Charlie. But... Or Emmy.
Yeah, because she's the only one who actually died young.
Emmy. Now we know why Emmy died young.
So the book starts, like I said, with Whit 2 days after Fiona's accident happened on the 28th of November. So it's a full 30 days since the prologue. So the thieves have had time to, lay low, make new plans, move on to a new location. We're getting to see Fiona's initial reactions to finding out that she is going to be blind, and it is very rough emotionally for everyone, especially because we all know that Whit has a lot of trauma around, like, what happened to his mom and just, like, the imagery of coffins and stuff like that. And so...
Also, near the end, at one point, they, like, the four Whitakers go and, like, look for a Christmas tree or whatever. Whit and Fiona have a snowball fight.
We'll get there.
Which is Whit throwing, or, like, Fiona just, like, hits Whit. Like, I imagined it like that scene in the Beauty and the Beast remake, where Beast just bodies Belle with, like, a snowman-size, bottom piece of a snowman-sized snowball. And then, Whit just starts hucking snowballs at Fiona, who the book so kindly mentions is not able... like, she gets hit by every single one. I'm like,
what?
Oh, geez. I wonder why.
It's almost like she's blind. Okay, we'll get there. So,
it's not like she's blind or anything and can't dodge a snowball because she doesn't know if something's
It's not at all like that.
She can't see.
Like that mermaid movie where it's like, are you throwing rocks at my house? No, I was just throwing rocks at your son with brittle bone disease. So, Laszlo Farnsworth enters the scene. He moves to town, and for a moment I was like, aw, Wilson Knox is a softie. He was like, no one bullies my friends but me. But it was a scam. So the school play is going to happen because it's the Great Depression and the school has no money to teach the kids anything. So the solution to that is to cancel all classes for almost a month so that they can work on this play. And it's like, I guess when the fate of the school more or less hangs in the balance, like it's more important than the short term, like 3 to 4 weeks of class. But it's like, it's wild that they could just do that back then. And he talks about how all the classes that are still happening, they're just talking about like all of the topics contextualized through like A Christmas Carol. Like, all right, kids, it's math class. Calculate how much compound interest Scrooge earned from this mortgage collection.
Calculate the grams of food in Scrooge's stomach that made him see ghosts.
His little bit of beef and a bit of undigested cheese.
I need to know how much gravy's in that grave. Come on, kids.
It was, especially because I was reading this, you know, in like the end of March, the beginning of April. It was really weird reading everyone talking about like losing their money and like all the jobs closing down and all these old-timey effects of the Depression hitting and the economy crashing right as we were veering towards the same thing in real life.
Yeah, I felt that. But then yesterday I was delivering and I was listening to the Magnus Archives, and there was a warning before the season started that some of the things in the season might hit a little bit too close because it was written before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. All the episodes, I think maybe all 40 actually, were written last year. And I was like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that makes me feel uneasy, but nothing like incredibly on the nose. And then one episode I listened to yesterday was called The Sick Village. Yeah, and it was just like, everyone is sick and they have to not touch each other and they're all wearing black and this and this and this. And there are those who don't know they carry the illness, but then they spread out to others. And I was like listening and I was just like, is this prophetic?
Well, I heard someone talking, I think it was on one of the Rooster Teeth podcasts a couple weeks ago, about how they rewatched Contagion, which came out in the 90s, I think. And they talked about how it was kind of like uncomfortable how just like real life now, some of the aspects of it were like they used the phrase social distancing, like that specific phrase multiple times in the movie, and talk about like people cannot go within 10 feet of each other to avoid spreading the virus.
Yeah, there's a line where it's just like people have to isolate themselves in their homes because that's the only place they're safe, but they're not even safe there in reality. And I was like, please stop. Johnny Sims, please stop.
So, yeah, even though it was very depressing, I was really glad that we got to see Fiona struggle with her new blindness here, because we really didn't get to see that in Thank You God. Like, Whit very much like washed over that aspect of it to focus on his part of it. But I'm glad we got to see. Like,
he skipped over a lot of things.
A lot of things,
like the cloth,
like the cloth, and his like death and resurrection as a baby and all that. Yeah, so it's nice that we get to see Fiona's character development as she like goes through this, and that, you know, it wasn't just like she gets blinded and she was like, oh, you know, I thank thee God for the roses and the thorns as well.
I liked how they changed the prayer. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a dumb question. Of course you know. If I noticed it, you noticed it.
So with Harold in this book,
this is my favorite book with Harold so far. I really liked him in it.
Even though he is still quite strict, it feels so good for Whit to just be able to tell him about some of the thing that's going on. And the fact that his dad trusts him at least a little bit. Like, I'm still shocked in the last book that Whit is like, hey, this adult is super sketch. You shouldn't trust him. And his dad was like, yeah, I know, he's bonkers. And wasn't like, don't be disrespectful to your elders, young man. I'm going to trust Carl Mongol completely and fully because I'm every adult in a series of unfortunate events. It still blows my mind that he actually like trusted Whit about this. And I'm so glad that he trusts him in his suspicion of Mongol. And like,
I'm also really glad, like, I got a lot of catharsis from like Whit finally like telling Harold everything in the last book.
Yeah.
But, like, I got so much more with Fiona knowing everything, so they can also tell her about all this stuff.
Yeah.
And then Fiona just saying, like, hey, Whit, you need to chill out. And it's like that one vine where it's just like, why don't you just chill? And then it's the Danny Gonzalez vine where he's just like, oh, you just hit my dog with your car or something like that. And then dude's just like, hey, chill. And then Danny just has sunglasses on. He's like, you're right, I didn't like that dog anyway. And then he just falls backwards.
I haven't seen that
just
one.
Just like, what?
I haven't seen
and
that.
And then just like Whit being able to calm down and not worry about the fate of the world being in his hands for like 5 minutes and being like, actually, I'm gonna burn that piece of cloth. And I was like, rock on, you tiny little man.
It's good. It's good that he trusts him, and obviously he still doesn't fully trust him and he's still keeping things from him, but it's very refreshing. So yeah,
there was like one part where Whit's just like, hey Harold, can you tell me about this thing? And Harold's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I was like, that is a lot.
And Whit's like, fine then, keep your secrets. So things with Fiona continue to get more depressing. And I was thinking, like, past me, like I said, was like, man, thank you God never really shows us any of Fiona's personal struggle with her blindness. Makes it seem like it was like no big deal for her. Wish we got to see her journey through it. And me now, it's like, not like that.
I think the scene that hit me the hardest was when the waitress lady like brought them food.
Yeah.
And Fiona was like, I don't need your pity.
Yeah.
And she like dumped it in,
and it goes everywhere.
It fell on the ground or something like that. 'Cause she like didn't catch it properly when she was trying to take it from her.
Yep.
And then she was like, get out of my house. And I was just like,
and then she just like
Fiona
ran upstairs crying. And Harold had to like chase after her, and it was that was really sad.
That hurt
me. It did. So we get to the part with the Middle Ages where Whit reads the manuscript about like the cloth getting lost, which doesn't really resolve like that story. I also like it's clear that this entire story that he's reading is in Latin, and Whit's like, Dad, this is in Latin, and he was like, go on. I'm sure you can, struggle through it. I'll help you if you need it.
Sport. Give it the old college try. Which is like, you're right. I understand every word.
Yeah, it was like Pocahontas. Whit's like, okay, I'll try. And then reads through the entire thing with no problem. And I'm like, of course Whit already knows enough Latin to read this entire manuscript without like faltering for a single conjugation.
And then he like has a conversation with Harold about it. And I'm like, boy, at your age, I was being given like those little 3-page things we have to read about whatever boring topic in school. Then we have to answer like 5 questions about it in class. Like, and I couldn't even do that. And
Whit's
you're doing
OP,
it in
please
Latin,
nerf. Please
which
nerf.
you don't even speak. Get out of my face.
Yeah, so this story involves like a bunch of knights that were entrusted to look after the cloth and the history of its origins, and then they were protecting it. I don't remember who was attacking them again.
One was one of the guys is just like, I hid it in this one place and only this one guy knows.
Yeah.
But then the guy, like, another guy stole it, and then because of how he
and then
stole
it's like, it's over here. And
they couldn't get it back.
And then he betrayed him and stabbed him. And then Whit's like, is this true? And his dad's like, I don't know. And he's like, but...
Yeah, line.
He was like,
who... You hear so often where it's just like, all stories have a little grain of truth in them, where every time I hear it, I'm like...
Whit asked the question I was hoping he'd ask, which was like, I mean, if this guy just got stabbed to death, then how do we know what happened? How is this written in his perspective? And his dad's like, I don't know. And then we just kind of move on from that without resolution.
That's me every single time I read something that's supposed to be like factual or something like that. Like I remember specifically saying that out loud, and then Whit saying it, and then Harold being like, I don't know, go eat your vegetables and go to bed. And I was like, oh, screw this.
And then there's the line about Lon Chaney and the black eye. I wrote in here, I'm guessing there's a 50-50 chance that Victoria understands like what this reference is about specifically, because I'm sorry that I didn't have enough faith in you.
Wait, what part are you talking about?
About the Lon Chaney and Phantom.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was like confused because I thought that the musical was the adaptation of the original novel, and I didn't know that there was a movie made in 1925. But obviously,
remember how I told you?
I know
to
you've
watch
watched
that
rankings of
thing?
all of the different adaptations.
That's not rankings of the different adaptations. That's just about the Persian. But
No, but I know you've watched stuff about all the different versions of
I have,
Phantom.
because it interests me.
I know. So,
But we'll get to that in the next episode of the Oddcast. What? Foreshadowing. Yeah. Yeah. What do you think I spent this afternoon doing? I did research.
on Phantom or on
No.
Sleepy Hollow?
We'll get to that.
Okay. So, Whit and Emmy are continuing to fight more and more with each other. And Whit's
Whit
like,
and Emmy remind me of like Ron and Harry in Harry Potter with the amount they fight every single book.
Whit's like, I don't understand why you have to be so emotional about this. Why do you have to be such a girl about it? And then everyone was like, and can I just say, I'm really glad that Whit grew up with Emmy around to just beat the misogyny out of him one book at a time, one chapter at a time.
One page at a time.
Um,
One brick at a time that she throws at him.
yeah. Even when it's not important to like building lore specific events, I really love that we can keep track of the events happening in here on a day-to-day basis. Like as Whit awakens at the top of chapter 13, by my math, I'm like, it should be Wednesday, December 13th. Is like goes by. The days didn't quite line up at the end from how I'd calculated it from the middle of the last book, so there's a little disconnect, which does surprise me a little because they've been very on top of like making things airtight with like the timeline of things. But it's also possible that I miscalculated somewhere.
Oh yeah, Whit and Emmy kissed, and I didn't like it.
Yes.
Because Emmy was cast as Clara in Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
So, like, and because Whit was Scrooge, they had, like, the flashback scene at Fuzzywig's house where Fezziwig, whatever his name is, where, like, they kiss. And then they, like, did in a practice. And I was like, don't like that. And then it described like Emmy blushing or something like that, and it's like, what's this feeling I feel? And I was like, the only way I'll like this
unadulterated loathing
is if it means Jack gets to say he did steal one of Whit's girlfriends.
Yeah, I know.
That's the only way I will like this. But yeah, and then it wasn't just an acting thing, because when Spumblers Whit beats the crap out of Laszlo later on.
Which is my next point.
And so Whit gets expelled for like a little bit.
Yeah.
Or like suspended, whatever. And because of that, he isn't Scrooge anymore.
His dad was shockingly chill with everything
that
happened with that. Like, I was floored. And then his dad was like lying to Fiona to cover for him searching for the cloth, and I was like, who is this man?
I think Harold's priorities were a little off, considering Whit was like, hey, I have more time to look for the cloth if I'm not in class. And Harold's like, you right, fix my wife.
Yeah, I know, but I was just surprised that he accepted that. He doesn't seem like the type who would have taken that.
I think it's just because his priorities were skewed.
Yeah, I get that. So
otherwise he wouldn't have been so chill.
Whit.
But like Wilson and Emmy, Wilson's Scrooge now, and Whit's like, are you gonna kiss Wilson, Emmy? And Emmy's just like, gross, no, I only kiss you. And I was like, I hate everything.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if she was doing it just as a friend and part of the play, I don't think that would affect the fact that she would be willing to do it for Whit and not for Wilson. And also, we forgot to mention earlier that Wilson, after he saved Whit, he was like, hey, do you want a wingman for me with Emmy?
Yeah. And Whit was like, heck no.
No.
Wilson was like, then die.
The only person you're allowed to be with is my sister. So
Whit's like, but my sister has better taste. And Wilson's like, we'll see about that.
So, yeah, Whit attacks Laszlo because he keeps on, like, provoking him and beating him with his cane and stuff. So, apart from Here Am I in the Truth Chronicles, why do we never get to see present day Whit take down someone by giving them a roundhouse kick to their patella and breaking their leg? I feel
His
like that
bones are brittle. He's over 100.
I feel like that doesn't happen enough. Could you imagine if that's what Whit did with Hank Murray? Is instead of like getting rid of the bullets, Whit just comes in and like kicks him in the knee and like breaks his leg backwards.
You think it's gonna be like, you see Whit propelling from the ceiling and you're like, oh, he's gonna do a Mission Impossible thing, and then he just drops on Hank Murray and just like gets him in a full Nelson, or I don't know any wrestling moves.
Could you imagine that? Like, he just comes in and kicks, and his knee, like, bends the wrong way completely, and Officer Orion is watching on the cameras and is just, like, losing his mind.
It's like the mission control.
Yeah, exactly. He's just like, that's exactly what I was picturing. That, or, like, the four guys on a couch watching the TV going, like... But, yeah, more so the mission status sick. So... Whit is expelled from school. He goes out. He follows his fetch quest RPG around. He gets the cloth back from the waitress. He has it. He puts it in his backpack. He takes 5 steps outside. And then after not seeing him for weeks, Mongol immediately magnetizes to Whit the second he has the cloth back. Like, he could smell it on him. Which, actually, come to think of it, probably could smell it on him because it is a 2,000-year-old cloth. And then, it was like, Whit's like, when they're talking about the thing that happened before, Whit's like, I could have been killed. And Mongol's like, doubtful. And I was like, wow, he's really lost, like, all subtlety. I was like, is he going to try and hurt Whit or, like, hurt someone
he straight up became, like, a Bond villain.
Yeah, I was like, he's going to, like, hurt someone that Whit loves in order to goad Whit into bringing out the cloth to try and save them, except...
Harold, like screeches up with his car, and he's just like, get in the car.
Stranger danger. Yeah, it was crazy. So they bring it back to the house, and they're like, okay, it's time to heal Fiona. Charlie, go upstairs. We're just going to have a very normal family meeting here. Where
I like how they tried not to alarm Fiona that anything was going on. So they said to Fiona, like, hey, just chill out, we're gonna pray. And then they just drop like a handkerchief on her face, and she's like, what are you doing? And they're just like, chill. She's like, what did you put on my face? And they're like, nothing's on your face.
Instead of telling Fiona what's going on, Harold's just like, I'm just gonna turn down the furnace until Fiona asks me to awkwardly drape a 2,000-year-old cloth over her face like a veiling shroud as a blanket to keep her warm in the dead of December.
Oh, what a romantic man. Colin Firth got nothing on Harold.
It was so, like, he even could have been, like, throw it over her or try to, like, do it in a way that she doesn't notice. But instead he's like, no, I'll just make the house too cold until she asks for a blanket. And then I'm like, here you go, dear.
And she's just like, Harold, what are you doing? He's like, I'm doing this because I love you. Don't ask questions.
And then, like, Charlie's trying to figure out what's going on, asking questions, and then all she does is get her family to get into an argument over metaphors versus idioms versus proverbs, and I'm like, stupid, over-intellectual family, please, just...
His family, English students, get out of here.
English majors.
Yeah, you know what's the only thing worse than English majors?
STEM majors.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true. Whit and Harold trying to convince Fiona to put the cloth on her face. In my mind, all I could think of was how it was precisely as subtle as Eugene trying to get Buck to drink the lemonade in the Green Room
I was thinking of, like, a ghost. Like, someone dressing up as a ghost by putting a sheet over themselves.
It's like, yeah, you come back and you'll be thirsty for a nice tall glass of lemonade.
Hey, you know what makes me uncomfortable? Eugene romancing Connie's little sister and being in a love triangle with her and his son.
We'll talk about that next episode. I thought that, I was, personally, I don't know why I thought this, but for some reason, I thought Eugene romancing a character whose name is Katrina might be perhaps played by not Jules.
No, I think the fact that the character is named Katrina made it worse, actually, and more uncomfortable for me. And I would say, just rename the character. if it weren't for the fact that that is the name of the character.
Yeah, but why not just have Katrina play her?
Because we gotta get...
Because then Buck would have to romance his adopted mother.
We gotta get her singing in the episode.
Yeah, I know.
Because she can sing.
She could have just sang in the chorus like she did last time. Anyways, so finally Fiona is the first person to talk some sense into these boys, where she's like, where does our faith lie if we trust a thing more than God? And I'm like, I've been wondering this very thing for many books. Which is why I thought that all of the healing...
Like, newsflash! I've been saying that the entire time!
That's why in the last book I said, like, I think that all of these healings are going to turn out to be, like, coincidences and circumstantial until, you know, Ben got a shotgun through his gut that then just closed and vanished completely. And I was like... Okay.
God's like, ha, what a good prank. Let's see him try and heal his blind mom and his cancer-ridden best friend.
Yeah, because I was like, otherwise, this feels just so cross of Cortez, right? And then finally, Fiona's the first person to talk some sense into them.
It's like that thing they say with the Adventure Zone, where it's just like, these boys need a competent woman to keep them in line, or else just everything bad will happen.
We have this scene where Fiona comes into Whit's room and she's like, you know, stop smiling, because a smile isn't something that you see, it's something you hear and all that. And I'm like, I know we've talked about it over and over, but I cannot believe that they gave us this entire scene like word for word from Thank You God, except for the first opening line where Fiona's like, I brought you your magic baby Jesus blanket. Whit is literally the most unreliable narrator we've ever had in this show. So Whit talks about, like, I need to destroy the cloth. And then I was like, is that why Mongol hates Whit so much and, like, stalks him
definitely.
His entire life and, like,
thought.
raises Blackguard as his disciple to hunt down Whit because Whit is
so
going to destroy the cloth?
It's so funny. Also, like, Mongol legitimately had a moment at the end of the book where he interacted with Whit and was chill.
Yeah.
Which I feel like we need to just, like, put that in a scrapbook, because that ain't happening again, folks.
Like, this honestly would explain why Whit holds so much immediate, not just caution, but he holds, like, resentment towards the Jesus cloth in album 18 when it shows up. And it was like, now it makes sense. After all that this cloth put him through and is going to put him through, like, I get now why when this package arrived in Whit's End and he was just like, I think we should carbon date it. Let's burn it immediately.
No, the funny thing would be, like, I want to think Whit immediately realized that specifically was a piece that somehow came off of his grandfather's cloth. He's like, that is the exact same pattern. Like, and he's...
It has
like immediately like,
same,
I know that's factual.
That
let's carbon date it. Oh, what's that? What's that? We have to burn the whole thing. Well, if that's what we have to do for science.
Yeah.
Do you think, like, Blackguard still is in contact with Mongol every now and then? And just, like,
Mongol's still alive.
He just, like, sends him the newspapers and Mongol sees a heading and it's just like, Jesus cloth burned. And Mongol's like, what? And he just loses his mind.
And that was the moment that he died.
He just had a heart attack immediately because he couldn't put up with this nonsense anymore.
So the mystery boy keeps on showing up. And, like, if this boy turns out to be, like, a ghost or something, I'm gonna lose my gourd. I can't tell what's going on with him.
You're gonna lose your middle name. You'll be Devin on Francis.
That was funny, Victoria.
I'm gonna tell him
the boy, it feels like it has to be someone that we know, but I can't imagine who it would be, unless it's someone that we never even knew that he had a connection to all along, like, that was connected to young Whit, and it's just this absurd plot twist, like, it was young Bernard, or something dumb like that.
Do you think they pull, like, a J.K. Rowling, and they're like, Jack's actually been black the whole time?
It was Nagini the whole time.
Nagini? What?
Could you imagine?
Have you seen that one post where it's just like, what if every single animal in Harry Potter
used to be
is
like a
actually
Korean woman?
like a Korean woman, and that's the real reason everyone was so surprised when Pettigrew, like when
Peter
Ron's
Pettigrew.
rat ended up being Peter Pettigrew. So
okay.
funny.
So speaking of plot twists, I was thinking in this book, with all the Wilson stuff that we're getting, could you imagine the plot twist if these books had come out first and then we got the episode where Wilson is moving to town and he's talking about being the pastor of Odyssey, and then the end of the episode comes and Whit reveals that Wilson is his brother-in-law?
Like, are you saying that we would know about Charlie? Would we know who Wilson is?
Yeah, I'm saying
like,
if these books came out first and we knew that there was this like bully that was named Wilson who was picking on Whit all the time when he was kids, and then we see the episode where Wilson is moving to Odyssey and he's becoming a pastor, and we're like, oh, that's wild. This is the Wilson from the books. And then the end of the episode comes.
You're like, Wilson redemption arc?
And then he reveals that he married Whit's sister. And we found that out after we already knew like what he was like as a kid.
Yeah, we would go pretty ballistic over that.
Yeah. Even more so than we already did when we found out about it without the context of the books.
We haven't really talked about Mongols' kids yet.
Yeah, we haven't. We'll get there soon, I think.
Okay.
So like you said, they go to look for a Christmas tree. Whit and Fiona get into a snowball fight. Fiona beats Whit in the snowball fight while blind. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I said this before, but this cinches it 100% that Fiona is the one who taught Whit how to throw hatchets.
Oh my gosh, yes. That is...
It was like, It was already obvious to me, but if she can Daredevil him with snowballs...
Harold definitely wasn't the one to teach Whit how to throw hatchets.
It was Charlie.
I would believe Charlie teaching Whit how to do that more than Harold.
Well, no, but I'm saying it could have been someone else. Could have been Ben or someone. I don't know.
No, it was Fiona.
I mean,
won't accept any
I've already
answer.
said before, like, it was obviously Fiona, but now that we know she can Daredevil, like, hit him with snowballs while she was blind, it's no surprise she was able to teach Whit.
Also, she's been blind for, like, a week.
I know.
And she's already, like, running around the kitchen, like, grabbing things and cooking things.
I know.
And she's just like, let me make you some stir fry. And I was like, lady, what?
I know. There's like, it's completely believable that after this point is when she teaches Whit how to like blindfolded look away bullseye throwing hatchets, which I love the idea even more that
Fiona
she teaches it to him now.
So
and
powerful.
She taught him after she was blind.
They had to like handicap Fiona's character to make her less powerful.
It's that post about this like God had to nerf me with mental illness, otherwise I'd be
that's. Yeah. I was trying to think of the word nerf, but I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I'm just picturing like the next villain from the next book who comes.
Also, Fiona and Whit go horseback riding to close off the book. And Whit's just like, but you're blind. And she's like, but this horse ain't. And then she just like hits it. And she's like, yeah. And then she rides off into the sunset. And I was just like, oh my God.
I mean, in fairness, that is something that is easier to do with a horse than it is to do with a car. Don't do that with a car.
I mean, I bet Fiona, that wouldn't stop her anyway.
Look, they're going to get out of my way or I'll drive out of theirs. But, you know what? She's like
Fiona like sees an elderly woman
Victoria,
like in traffic and she's like, oh, let me help you cross the street.
Victoria, very apt for what I was about to say. She's the grandma at the beginning of Mulan.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, pretty much.
She just crosses her eyes and closes the street. That's her That's her horseback riding.
Yeah, pretty much.
All the cars swerving out of the way to crash.
Or it's like a Mr. Magoo cartoon where Wit's just trying to like make everything safe for her and she just has no idea.
Exactly. He's like life is stranging her.
Pretty much.
So yeah, I'm picturing the next book when the villain like tries to kidnap Whit in his own house. He's like, I don't think you should do that. And he was like, what? Are you going to break my leg with your roundhouse kick? And he's like, I could, but also look at this. This is my blind stepmother. And Fiona, with her like blind glasses on, like opens the kitchen window, picks up like a throwing hatchet, like flips it in the air and then throws it like across the yard into Emmy's yard and like hits like the square bullseye of a dartboard they have in the backyard or something.
I thought you were
like
to say Fiona takes off her Coke bottle glasses and then uses her laser eye vision on the thieves, because as we all know, every blind person has laser eyes like their Cyclops in X-Men. That's the real reason why they wear the glasses.
Yes.
It's to keep you safe, or they'll kill you.
So, this ended up not quite timing out exactly the way that I thought it was, but at this point I was like, okay, the day after getting the Christmas tree should be Friday, December 15th, meaning that the Christmas play is a week from today. And it ended up...
You're still recording, right?
Yeah.
All right.
It ended up actually being like a day or two after that because something went awry. But anyways, I was like, and we also know now which day Whit became a Christian, which perfectly dated the scene from Thank You God. And we know that we're about to hit Christmas, and that's when he gets the journal. The timing of it all, it lines up so perfectly for the pacing of getting the journal and how he's talking about like he's at the beginning of his faith, but it's not like the first day when he gets it on Christmas Day in the Journal of Whit episode. My heart absolutely melted when Whit talked about how all he wanted for Christmas was a lunchbox with Mickey and Steamboat Willie on it.
Also, that means that Disney's canon in like this universe, and like since Star Wars is and isn't a thing at the same time.
Yeah.
What does that mean for Disney? Because I'm pretty sure they've done Disney parodies before.
Yeah, they have. I know. I was surprised that they mentioned like actual Disney IPs and as IP as Mickey Mouse.
And also, so like, can let's go come and play with me in this little box.
Play with me in the space.
Phil's put us in.
And Dave.
Where we have the episodes with dialogue that does not always match the book's dialogue.
Yes.
And the books are more canon than the episodes.
Yes.
Does that mean all fake parody things in the episodes are actually going to be the real things?
I mean, they've definitely mentioned actual Disney things before, right? Right? Like that weren't parodied versions, I want to say. I could be wrong.
I can't think of any instances.
Maybe I'm only thinking of the instance where they specifically call out Star Wars. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I mean, it was surprising. So, Whit hates coffee, he says, and we find out that his association with when the bank got robbed as a child is how he decided that hating coffee would be his code phrase to the police that he was being robbed in the future. Speaking of Hank Murray.
I did not pick up on that.
I mean, actually. I don't think that's the connection, but I just thought that was interesting.
But it could be. I wouldn't put it past him at this point, honestly.
So, yeah, the play was supposed to happen on December 22nd. My following of things would suggest that it is the 17th when the thing is actually happening, based on my extrapolations from the previous book, based on the calendar where Halloween was on the day of the week they said it was, which I think was a Tuesday. Honestly, these books have been so airtight so far, I was expecting it to still line up forever. Because I figured
forever
they're going through it so much that they probably just like have a calendar that's set to like the right week-month alignment, and they're just marking the events out on it. Maybe I'm wrong.
I mean, probably.
But then how did this
happen?
Way to do it. It would be the easiest way to do it. So that's why I was confused about why it didn't line up there. There's more.
I just imagine like all the points where they're like, so should we talk about the robbers now? It's like, we will talk about the robbers tomorrow.
We get more of these like cheeky little nods to future Whit and stuff where they're like a little too on the nose sometimes, but I like the one where Whit's like, I can relax when I'm old, and someone's like, knowing you, I doubt you'll do it even then. And I was like, you have no idea. So I'm guessing that you probably didn't know this, Victoria, but I looked it up and thought it was quite surprising.
Try me.
That
probably not, but try me.
This gang that they're going after and Alvin Karpus are real people. They are real historical, very famous bank robbers who were
when you were talking about like the dates at the beginning of the book and the prologue, I thought you were going to say like, and I looked it up on a newspaper and this was a real theft and these guys were real.
Alvin Karpus and this gang is. I was like, even more like Whit, every book.
Like I figured they were real the way they talked about them.
Well, that's why I looked it up, because they talked about it in a way that's like, are they real? I feel like they are. It just seems like an interesting choice to go with, right? To have Whit interact in the canon, because I was like, presumably they're going to catch him. So I'm like, then I need to look up, how did these guys get arrested in real life, and like how are we interacting with real history? Every book, Whit becomes more so young Indiana Jones. Also, the fact that this notorious old-timey gang was run by Ma Barker, I was like, she's definitely the inspiration for Ma Beagle and the Beagle Boys from DuckTales.
Oh. Yeah, you're right.
So yeah, and then the guy that he's been following now, Sam or Ham or whatever, turns out to be like this famous author that Whit's like, yeah, I figured out because you named yourself after
Ham
one of your
is my
characters.
favorite Odyssey character.
Yeah. Ham. Chicken Bone, Ham Bone.
Ham.
Doris, Chicken Bone, Ham Bone. It's hyphenated.
Man, who would have thought we'd have 2 Odyssey characters named Ham in the
3,
year of our Lord 2020?
Bart and Doris and
3.
And Dashiell Hammonds. So yeah, he's like a famous person too, and he's like, yeah, I'm a famous author, but also I'm undercover for the FBI, and I'm like, okay, seems legit, why not?
I think this was the point where
I'm very read... John Mulaney. I was like, this might as well happen.
If you haven't noticed, Evan, reading the Young Whit books takes a lot more of my mental power than reading the Blacker books, because I care a lot less. So I have to really pace myself. And I read a whole lot that last day. So when the point, like, I had no idea what was going on here, and he was like, I actually work for the government. And I was like, I don't even know what character you are anymore, but okay, why not, I guess.
So,
like, I made that John Mulaney meme, and then I was just like, you know the days where you're, like, reading the Young Whit book, and you're like, this might as well happen.
These books are already so weird.
It's me every single time. Like, these books are already so weird. This might as well happen.
And as we get from the cover art on here, like, Whit and Emmy get kidnapped at gunpoint by, like, Alvin Carper, and Whit concocts a plan where he's like, well, there's at least a 40% chance that we're not going to be made to drive in the car that I've rigged to explode. So I'm willing to take that chance. And it was a good roll with bad odds, and he wasn't in the car that exploded, fortunately. And then they got rescued. But it was pretty scary, and also involved them driving, even though they couldn't reach the pedals on the highway, on the interstate, no less. So that was pretty crazy. And then it's like, hey, it's Christmas time now, everything's happy. Ah, yes. Whit gets his journal, and now things will have to follow an extremely stringent schedule in order to line up with the episodes. And Whit also got the Mickey Mouse lunchbox. It was very cute.
So, like, I guess that new girl's going to be introduced pretty soon then, that Whit has a crush on.
Yeah, that entry happened on Valentine's Day, so that could be the book after next book, maybe, if our pacing stays the same. And I believe that was the first entry after Christmas Day in the episode, so we don't know anything that happens up until mid-February.
So how many books do you think before Jack?
Jack
I ask every episode.
In May. We've been going about 1 to 2
It months. Is May. Give me Jack.
1 to 2 months per book. So I'm going to say, if we continue at the same pace, 4 books from now, 3 to 4 books from now.
That answer is very unsatisfactory to me.
But, I mean, they might skip more time, but they've been going less than a week at a time for the most part so far since the week before the school year began. And then they give us the plot twist at the end that was kind of a letdown, because we all knew since the last book. It was right there in the Greek. I mean, the Greek implied that it was Jesus' swaddling cloth from the manger, because it translated to, like, barn blanket or something like that. I don't remember. So I still choose to believe that since that's a more specific and not technically mutually exclusionary interpretation of it, that what Harold said at the end here can be narrowed down to, it is not just the cloth that Jesus wore, but it is his swaddling cloth still. I think that has a little more specific flavor to it. I was surprised that they didn't get the money back in the end, but I was like,
Yeah.
I guess it had to be that way probably to like line up with history because they were inserting real famous people into the story and they couldn't have like had them get caught and arrested if that didn't happen in real life.
Those characters have to live so they can buy the rights to be in DuckTales.
Yeah. Even though Ma Barker's dead at this point.
I was about to say, like, could you imagine how crazy it would be? Like, a character based off of her becoming a Disney character and Whit seeing that. And I was just like, wait, she is like she was a real person and she was like, there was a Disney character based off of her. But could you imagine, like, Whit is
also she
watching...
was dead before.
Do you think this is why Whit doesn't
happened.
Watch TV? Because he's met all these horrible historical figures and he just keeps on seeing like them become characters in popular media.
Yeah. So that's the book. That's where we wrap with book number 3. More life-threatening escapades, more kidnappings, more explosions. You know, more Whit being way more physically like what's the adjective for prowess? Proficient, and like mentally, linguistically proficient than he should have any right to be.
You mean like how he read the entire Sherlock Holmes collection when he was like fetus?
3? Yeah. And then how he can read all that stuff in Latin, but also is like, hey, you're bullying me in school? I'm going to break your kneecaps. You know, it's Whit.
And we wouldn't have them any other way. I don't really want to read this, but I have to.
What?
I don't even remember what I rated the other ones.
Oh, rate. I thought you said read.
No, I have read it.
I know. I thought maybe you were talking about reading something else, like you wrote some kind of poem.
I wrote a poem about how pointless the robbers were for the majority of this book.
I was so confused. Because the Thieves of Barrymore, I was like, Barrymore isn't the town where he lives. And it's not the town they robbed at the beginning. It took me like 3/4 of the book before I was like, oh, Barrymore's the name of the bank. Because I was like, what is it talking about?
You know, we really should have seen the bank heist coming earlier.
Yeah, Whit should have just read the title of the book.
What are you rating it?
I'm going to give this one... I'm going to give it Oh yeah, we still didn't talk about the kids. Do you want to talk about the Mongol children?
Oh.
So he's like
real quick.
Brilliant illustrator.
They have a game where they try to break their teeth on purpose. What kind of depression-riddled, bored kids are you?
Kids during the Depression.
Shut up.
Victoria. You act like people these days don't sit around and like try and throw snacks.
We're in quarantine. It's different. Everyone's just doing TikTok or staring at a wall. There's no in between.
Yeah. Well, there is, and it's called being essential workers. I'm so tired all the time. My ears hurt perpetually from wearing surgical masks all day. Yeah,
but you're healthy.
He's a brilliant illustrator, and so they decide. Whit manages to convince the school that instead of using the play to raise money for the school, that they should use it for the operations for what's his face.
For Mongol's kid, which is the reason why Mongol does have that scene where he's nice to Whit, or at least acts like a civilized human being for once in his life towards Whit.
While Harold's standing behind him, like cracking his knuckles.
And Fiona's standing even farther behind, holding a hatchet.
She has a big snowball.
Getting hit by the snowball would hurt more than the hatchet, knowing Fiona.
Instead of putting a rock in the snowball, she just has like a giant snowball that she buried an entire hatchet inside. Yeah. I mean, I think I might rate it third out of the 3 books we've read so far for Young Whit, but there's still a lot of things I really liked. I liked Fiona, like, bringing them to their senses and kind of, like, talking about, like, examining the theological implications of, like, the ways that they were pinning all of these miraculous hopes on the cloth, and how Harold is continuing to trust Whit more. I like that we're getting more, like, kind of direct confrontation. I forgot that Mongol, like, straight up saw last time the cloth work, and Whit still hasn't told his dad about that part. Yeah, I mean, the school play and stuff, it's always hard, right, to care as much about the more mundane things when everything else is going on in the background. But overall, they had good characterization. I still really
I mean, basically,
love
Harold's
Emmy.
like, "Hey, John, how was your day?" And Whit's like, "Well, I did pretty good with my lines today. That's what I thought about for 90% of the day. Also, this miracle cloth uh, is in my backpack right now, so that's cool." And Harold's like, "Oh, neat. Let's go home. Let's throw it at your mother like it's confetti."
I am going to give it 4.4.
I'm gonna give it a 4. I'm gonna give it a 4.
All right. So, what are we talking about next time, Trey?
World of Whitonia.
Uh-huh.
And
Icky, Cat, Balty, and Bones.
And something and
Icky
Bones.
and Cat and Balty and Bones, yeah.
Yeah. Which, no, I'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it next time. So, yeah, we're going to squish together the September and October episodes for the AIOC so we can all get caught up a little bit. That's what we're doing next time. Until then, thank you for joining us on our side of YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also known as Dr. Blackguard.
And there's no gourd anymore. It's only on now.
No gourd, only squash.
It's gone.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.